A hearing before the ZBA in the town of Sutherland will be held on Thursday, January 12th. Consider the application of Terry Hunter, SBL 9.26-1-20 for property located at 1276 Tyler Road, Bridgeport, for an area variance to build a front porch by encroaching 8 feet into a 30-foot required front yard setback. The above application is open for inspection at the town of Sutherland office. Any person wishing to hear such a hearing may do so by person, attorney, or other representative. All right, Terry, if you wanna come up here and tell us what you need.
Do you want a copy of the survey? So
I think we've all got a nice map, so I think
We've all got your pretty pictures.
Oh, yeah.
You did a good job.
You see, we've really turned the corner lot around. I mean, it was very overgrown and just dumpy, basically, that we had to clean up. What we did, we cleaned it up, we got the house there. House is in compliance, we're 30 feet off both corners, both, roads. But when we built the house, we are bordered in the back by a paper road, very common in this area. And the paper road, we want to put a garage at the back of the house so that when we come down Tyler Road, we'll turn right into our drive. It's the shortest way to get into the house. Plus, because of the location of the septic being on the other side of the house, we really were very limited in where we could place everything. If it wasn't for the paper road, we may not even be here. We could push it back a lot more. But we've got Terrace Street, so we have to take that into consideration. And then the septic's on the other side, so we've got the house there. And then, now we want to build the porch, and we need a few more feet, because it was maybe a slight misunderstanding on my part. I thought we owned up to the road, and when we did the survey, it turns out we do not.
So you need 8 feet, the porch is 8 feet, because like you said, your house is right at the edge now of the 30 feet.
Yeah,
And we put an 8-foot porch on it.
we would like to, with your permission.
They want that lake view.
You got it! My parents live down the road, my mom's 70, my dad's 80, we see the future. We're gonna be up here taking care of them. And so we want our own space, and we plan to head as much as possible. And when we got the updated survey by Mike McCauley, he confirmed that the house is good, it's in compliance. There is a gravel patch on there, that's just temporary for the crane head, it was a modular home, so we put the crane head there.
I was gonna say, I was down there today,
Yeah.
and I noticed a lot of crushed stone and stuff like that. And are you planning on parking there?
No.
Okay.
Definitely not. That would block the lake view. We're gonna put it on the back side of the house, so cars won't be in our view. But they had to put the crane head there, so we will move that. House ended up, if you saw it today, it's up out of the ground, kind of further than we anticipated, but
You're gonna have a great view on that upper deck.
we are very, very excited.
Sure.
Does the board have any other questions for Terry?
Is it gonna be covered?
Well, it's like a porch underneath, you probably see the picture there. The balcony will not be covered, no.
Saw that picture at one time.
Yeah, my CAD drawing there. So that's
And
faces.
the upper and the lower deck would face the lake, and then the other one wraps around.
The garage you're talking about behind it on the south side?
Yes, we're on the north shore. Yes, it'd be the south side. Back. Yeah. So again, it wouldn't impede the view. I mean, it's all about the view up here. If you don't own the lakefront, you gotta see the lakefront.
Any other questions from the board? It doesn't look like there's anybody here to speak for or against this application. Okay, we're gonna talk about this in a few minutes, so you can stay around and we'll probably make a decision tonight. I'll close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, why don't we take care of this right now?
I gotta find my short EAF.
So both the town planning board and the county board saw no problem with this application.
That's right.
We'll hear from both of them.
Who's got the form? Oh, okay. Morning.
going in the form?
Luke's got it.
Luke's got it.
All right.
So we just gotta go down the reason for the variance, building a front porch.
Building a front porch by encroaching 8 feet into the 3-foot required front yard setback.
Okay, and then, let's see,
This one's for
it's a type one.
No,
Or
you
type
have
two.
Right. No, but this particular one's unlisted, and we'll go through the short EF.
Okay.
At the very end, before you make a vote, I'll walk you quickly through that. It's gonna be a neg-deck.
And then just read the questions.
All right.
We can hope answer.
Factors considered. Whether undesirable charges would be produced in character of neighborhood or a detriment to neighboring properties, nearby
Let's
properties.
say no.
Because
There's, it's not blocking anybody's view down there.
It's
It's
8
just
feet on
other
30,
porches.
so it's, I guess we'll get to this more in the next question. I don't think it's a significant, request.
It's a very low traffic street. It's a very residential.
And it's on the end of the street.
it's the use is residential in nature, and this decking is a common type of use on a single family home. So that wouldn't impact the character of the area necessarily.
It's residential use in common with other
Yep.
homes. Okay, 2, whether benefits sought by applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance.
No.
Could be, but not a viable solution.
I don't think it can be at all. If they've got the issues in the back, and the goal is to have a porch if the house is on the property line. Because I think the discovery wasn't made that they were on the 30-foot marker until
after
after
the
it's
house is
constructed, yeah. So it would not be feasible to deconstruct the house, move it back.
Three, whether the requested variance is substantial.
It's 8 feet on 30. I mean, I say no. I mean, somebody can disagree with me. It's 20, less than 30%.
It's not a 20-foot porch.
What now?
It's not, it's a 20.
Right, it's
Right.
not a huge.
Right, no, they're only encroaching 8 feet on, so.
I say not substantial.
So that's- Let's see, would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood?
No.
Doesn't seem like it.
So no environmental conditions were identified associated with the project.
No such conditions identified. 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
It's always yes.
South.
Not a determining factor.
You gotta decide, in this instance, does that sway your opinion heavily to say you can't have it? It sounds like the board is recognizing this type of use in this size lot in this area is probably not gonna be a determining factor at the whole self-created portion.
So
But it
yes,
almost always is.
so yes, but not a determining
Yes.
factor.
Mm-hmm.
Then we normally look at, how we answer these questions to decide, whether to approve or deny the application. There's like 5 questions and, 3 of them are negative, that might affect how we, make the motion. But, we didn't see any problem with these questions. Therefore, might wanna make the motion. You can read it right there, if you would so agree.
Well, let me go through this, okay?
Okay,
Okay, so when we also have to consider the potential environmental impact of this. I'll suggest the answer is no to each of these, we've all seen it. So, will the proposed action create a material conflict with adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an existing community? No, and you guys talked about that, it's not gonna impact that. There's no critical environmental area on that site. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the level of traffic, affect infrastructure, mass transit, biking, and walkways? No. Proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? No. Public or private wastewater facilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resource? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? We haven't heard any of that throughout the public hearing or in the application. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? We haven't heard anything about that either. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. So I've suggested the answer to all these questions is no, and I checked the box for a negative declaration. So when you go to do your overall resolution, which I think is going to be to allow for this requested variance, we'll include this negative deck, which is also on your form that you have, but I'll hand this up to the chairman too.
now, I'm a little confused, why did we have to go through this time?
On which one? On this one?
Yeah,
Well, because of that, because of the size, I just want to make sure that
The size of,
how it encroached into that front yard. I wanted to make sure we cover. We can always do that if we like to. And so here's that. Doesn't, won't hurt you to do it.
yeah.
Okay, so the ZBA, after taking into consideration the above 5 factors, finds that the benefit to the applicant does not outweigh the detriment of the neighborhood or community, and therefore the variance requested is denied.
No.
Or
Oh,
the,
sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you
Sorry.
suggested that.
You're good.
the benefit of the applicant does outweigh the detriment of to the neighborhood or community, and therefore the variance requested is approved.
I'll second that,
So you're going for the grant.
the approval.
So yeah, check the box for that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're.
And Luke made the motion?
Luke made the
Yes.
motion,
Okay, Terry.
and I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of accepting this variance signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, okay.
You're out of here, go home.
Thank
We'll
you.
work on confusion or fishing.
I know, right? But I have to drop off my permit application for the back. We are getting stamped plans, so just hopefully, I guess I'll put them.
So,
Okay. I'm gonna have to stamp them now. So they're just handing around sketches right now, but he brought it to the architect to install.
today is the 12th, correct?
Yes, sir.
I thought maybe it.
Need a motion by
Okay, thanks. Have a good night, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Drive careful.
Okay, what we got next on the agenda, Mr. Brennan, he wants to discuss possibly challenging an interpretation of some of our codes. So he's gonna talk to us what he see, or what he's disagrees with, I guess I'll say, leave it at that, so. Yep. Were you on the, you were on the board when he made his application back, was the first time in October or November?
November, I think, right?
I was not here in November.
Okay, so
I have a note from them.
he has some property down
This was right on the lake.
yes.
Oh, yeah, no,
It was
that's,
split into
okay,
three,
that's
and he put in a
it.
road, and I
Yeah,
think that was in,
put in a road,
I think that was
yes.
in, September.
Yeah, we've talked.
I don't think, Luke was not on the board for the original application.
Okay,
I believe Brian was still there.
okay, yeah, but
I know they
but
talked
he's
about
been in some of the
September or something
discussion.
like that. Yeah.
And I don't believe I was present for that one.
You were not.
So, do you want me to, would you like me to start? or do you want to
Yes,
start?
no, go ahead.
Okay.
You're here to just, to inform us, because I mean, he has not filled out an application, because if he does want to challenge it, he needs to fill out an application and have a public hearing. So, you know, we have not scheduled a public hearing, so the purpose of tonight's meeting is just to maybe get us all up to speed on what his concerns are.
But there are two applications I filed in November that should be in existence, because when I came in to file one of my subdivision applications, Mr. Ball had them in his hand in the lobby, so we should have two applications on file
For the zoning board or for the planning board?
for the zoning board of appeals.
Subdivision is planning board. Special use permit is planning board.
That's right. And I'm not referencing those applications. There was two specific zoning board of appeal applications that I'd filled out to get on into the meeting, even though they were filled out after the public hearing deadline to inform the public in November. And when I came in to file the last subdivision in November, after the zoning board of appeals meeting on the following Monday, I think the zoning board of appeals meeting was the 10th of November.
Yes.
And so the 11th, 12th, on the 14th, which would have been a Monday or Tuesday, when I came in to file a subdivision application, Mr. Ball had the two zoning board of appeals applications in his hand. If I need to fill one out, if it got lost or we need to put one on file, I can.
I've got it right here.
Nobody has that yet. We
Oh,
had to
nobody
wait-
has this yet?
No, because we had to wait to see if
All right.
after the November meeting.
Are those the applications I'm referencing?
So
Yes,
let
I
me,
received on
let
November
me
2nd.
read what this is. It's an application to the ZBA for an area or use variance is its title. Looks like it's from November. It says, it's filled out by Mr. Green. And it says, it's got his name, his P.O. Box address. The location of the property is 121 Water Street, 95 Willow. It says, check the box for an area variance.
There should be another application, I think each one was 2 pages. I could be mistaken.
I might be stuck on the first page. Hold on.
Each application was 2.
Keep going here. Short, yeah.
Because there was another one specifically for the interpretation of road frontage.
Mr. Green, I'm
That's
gonna,
what
I'm gonna hand this to you right now, but this is the one that
That we do
Gary
have on
found.
file. And there should be another one with road frontage.
Maybe what you're looking for.
This might be it, right here. Interpretation application,
These were filed.
11/10/22. Steve, I'm gonna bring this right back up to you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And by no means am I just wanna make sure that you have what you guys need from,
Sure.
if you need to come back for a public hearing next month, that's perfectly fine.
So, yeah, so there has to be a public hearing on this anyway. But, so again, this is a document, it's an interpretation application, it's completed by Stephen Breen. Much of the same information as far as his address, et cetera. And then you can take a look at what he has in it. But again, this is his application and we'll allow him to present it tonight. that's the area use variance, I don't think you need to, I mean, you can look at it, but I think he wants to focus on that.
Okay.
I wish this case was as easy as your last one, but obviously it hasn't been. There's been also some additions that I've emailed to Jerry and to Steve since I submitted that application, but I think everything can be resolved in one compartment. The purpose of me seeking interaction with the town and the board before was to get a subdivision, was to obtain a subdivision. And I haven't really discussed this a lot with the town. I sent Mr. Lange and Mr. Becker and Mr. Park an email, but in some of my research and finding at the end of December, with the filing of my subdivision and the level of improvement of the lots with the addition of the sewer in 1978 and water, it is beyond the jurisdiction of the planning board. So I don't need to obtain any approval from the town to subdivide the rest of the land. It was filed as a subdivision with the county clerk's office first in 1925 and then again in 1932. Every lot was referenced to these maps, and even on my tax map, the town assessor and the county assessor both have all these lots off the original subdivision maps on my lot. The land, this remaining land was never subdivided. I own the remaining land of the person who owned the subdivision. So I don't need, it's not part of the it's not under the jurisdiction of the planning board, but I still need to pull building permits. And zoning still needs to be complied with.
Okay. John, do you agree with that assessment?
Unfortunately, and I do respect Mr. Green, but I don't agree that what he says establishes the right not to have to go through the normal subdivision procedure that's contained in our subdivision. All due respect, that's not my opinion whatsoever.
Okay.
It's okay though, but we can, this is a process. And you should be allowed
Yeah,
to
and I
finish that
anticipated,
process.
like I said, we
I
have.
respect you and I respect John, and it's like,
I
what do I believe here?
I haven't, in all fairness, I haven't had a chance, and it's hard to have a discussion with the town. I can, once in a while, I can have a discussion with Mr. Lange, and he's in a tough spot. He's representing the town, but he also knows a lot of what I'm bringing to him isn't frivolous either, that there's some basis to this. And in all fairness, I have not had a chance to discuss the new findings with the town. I can tell you I've had it verified with several attorneys, and the land is being filed and subdivided as we speak into my 3 lots. And I could definitely do that by law, and if they want an explanation, I could definitely explain it. And it's in the state town laws, chapter 62, article 16, specifically State Town Law 276 was drafted in 1938. These town laws were drafted in 1938. They've been on the books since then. They were slightly modified in 1992 for verbiage, but they've remained pretty much the same since then. In this state law, it talks about the authorization that the town board can give to the planning board on reviewing subdivision plats, preliminary plats, and subdivisions. Section 2 is a separate authorization for a separate power to review previously filed plats, which are plats that were filed with the county clerk prior to the formation of the planning board. And that's what I have. That's what these 2 maps are. These 2 maps are from the county. This is map number 368, and this is map number 454. And I got these from the county clerk. These were the original subdivision maps that were filed showing my streets and lots in Pleasant View Place. So in the other part of section 2, so there's an authorization to review.
Am I a little off here? I guess the more information you throw at me that's not relevant,
We don't have to go over the subdivision.
it gets me
tonight.
lost. I guess I really want to know what you need from us, whether the planning board or the town and all this. I'm not trying to be rude.
No.
But you're gonna just get me totally confused. Just tell me what you want from this board.
And my stance is, and I may have to addressed this with Mr. Lange in the town. I don't need an approval for a subdivision. What I need to do is address these zoning issues that Mr. Ball's bringing up so that I can actually pull building permits for these lots. And,
So what do you need from us?
well, the first thing is that Mr. Ball brings up per my surveys is the size of the front lot. He's flip-flopped several times back and forth on the size of the lot. Before I came to this board in January, Mr. Ball was saying it needed to be 40,000 square feet, LR40. We went through the zoning, I trusted his judgment. I didn't verify anything. We went through the zoning procedure. After the meeting in July, I read.
When you say the zoning procedure, you're talking
The
about
zoning
area
board,
variance.
the zoning board of appeals.
That was denied.
That was
So
denied.
you made an application based upon the determinations by the code officer.
Actually, Mr. Ball
You
made
made
the
an
application.
application for an area variance. Some of you were on the board. That area variance for lot 1 was denied, and that decision was filed and recorded here. And now, go ahead.
So, and actually, I didn't file that application, Mr. Ball did. Mr. Ball determined the variances that were needed. I didn't know any variance were needed until I actually got the legal notice, which I came in and picked up, just to clarify. However, after that procedure, the zoning board meeting and decision, I had extensively went through the code. Not only the state town laws, but the Town of Sullivan Code, chapter 275 and 235. I brought some very valid points up. We had a telephonic meeting between Mr. Lange, my attorney at the time, Mr. Cavill, and Mr. Park, and I brought up some very valid points about road frontage and about business district being a special permit area. At that time, the town had said, well, show us another subdivision. We're anxious, Mr. Lange, I believe, said, I'm anxious to see what you got. And so we had started a process on doing another subdivision. When I submitted a 2-lot version of my subdivision, leaving the front lot the same size, Mr. Ball drew an analysis up dated October 27th. Never asked for any variances for the front lot. We had a discussion in front of the planning board November 1st. Mr. Ball was present. He sat at that table, and I sat here, and Mr. Park was here. And during that video, and during that meeting, Mr. Ball and Mr. Park agreed that that front lot was buildable as is, no variances were needed. And that's evident, that's not a one-time decision, that's evidenced by Larry not putting any variance requests in his analysis for that division. So then, his biggest concern at that time was a wetland and road frontage for my back 2 lots by the lake. So I came to the meeting on November 10th to start the discussion on road frontage. Mr. Ball wasn't present. I didn't feel comfortable going into everything, again, unless he's in the room, even though I'm directly disputing a lot of what he says. It's just not my character. So then, 4 days later, I submitted an application to change my subdivision back to 3 lots. And then Mr. Ball goes back to, well, now it needs to be 40,000 square feet again. There's a lot of interesting things on this 40,000 square feet, and I guess that's one of the things I'm asking for. So while we're focused on that, let me stay there before I go to road frontage. And the first thing I want to point out is the zoning map. The Town of Sullivan, my land is in Lakeport, which is in Lakeport Bay. And in the whole Town of Sullivan, north of Route 31, is all MR12. 100% of it. The business district was created in 1979 east of Lakeport per the code. It's right in the code manual when it was created. And it's to run 300 feet to each side of the center line of Route 31. If you look at the map where the purple ends and the business district ends, MR12 remains 300 feet on each side of Route 31. The green in the town is agricultural. The peach strip to the left is the only section that's LR40. So all of my land sits, it used to be MR12 and now it's business district. So how anybody could confuse that it has to be LR40 requirement? There's not one lot in the Town of Sullivan north of Route 31 that's LR40. There's not one lot. And per the schedule, which is attachment 2 in the zoning chapter, attachment 2, every use in a business district requires a special permit. Every use. And special permits, there's a lot of laws and literature on special permits, starting in the state town law, where the town board authorizes the planning board to authorize special permits. There's a section in the town's code, 275-9, special permit procedures. Mr. Ball's only authorization in that procedure is to issue me an application and then determine its completeness within 10 days. The planning board decides to issue the special permit, the lot size, the setbacks and everything, and that's evidence right on the table and stated right on the table. All the lot size values in the business district have a dash. And then there's a footnote 1 and 6 at the end. Footnote 1 of this zoning table states that when the sizes aren't listed in section 279 special permit, that the planning board sets the lot sizes and parameters based on the development in the immediate vicinity. So the whole decision on lot size and whether to issue the permit for the use is determined by the planning board. And it specifically states in 275-9, Mr. Ball's only obligation is to, again, determine if the application is complete. Mr. Ball is refusing to give my application to the planning board for my special permits. After the zoning meeting in July, Mr. Ball issued me a building permit for that front lot, stating he could do so because it was 40,000 square feet. I have since returned the permit because it's in the business district, and if I start building, any one of my neighbors or anybody in the town can stop me and issue a stop work order because I don't have a special permit on that lot. It's a business district. And so what I'm asking this board to do is reaffirm its own code that Mr. Ball's only role is to issue an application and then determine its completeness, whether my tax map was included, whether my site drawings were included.
State that again, what you want us to determine again?
I'm asking this board to affirm and determine, reaffirm its own code, 275-9, special permits process. I have an application in for two special permits for the 2 lots that I have being divided right now in the business district. I'm asking this board to determine that the way 275-9 is written, and it's straightforward, he's just to determine completeness and then forward the application on to the planning board. And that's what I'm asking this board to enforce, is to compel Mr. Ball to forward my application onto the planning board so the planning board can look at it. The planning board may refuse, and they may say yes or no, and that's a whole different animal, and I get that. But this is the first step. Mr. Ball has been refusing to submit my sketch plat applications and my special use permit applications to the planning board. He's been drawing up his own analysis and then refusing to forward on the applications as he's required to by chapter 235. By chapter 235, the sketch is to be presented to the planning board chairman. My last 3 sketch plat applications have not been presented to the planning board chairman. My special use permit application that's on file that Jerry referenced that I submitted in December has not been presented to the planning chairman. Mr. Ball's response to me at the end of December was, he sent me a long determination on my special permit use application that contained maps that weren't filed, laws that don't exist, and told me point blank that there was no planned action in front of either board with any application. So I'm asking this board to compel Mr. Ball, order Mr. Ball to forward my special use permit application on the planning board, so they can consider that and issue the special use permits for my business district lots. That's number 1. In my request in the email, I had requested to compel Mr. Ball to forward the sketch plat applications as well. And since the new development not needing the town's approval for the subdivision, I don't need that anymore. withdraw that request. I'm asking that this board make the determination that 40,000 square feet, Mr. Ball doesn't get to determine the lot size in a business district. That it's supposed to be by the planning board through that special permit process. And since he's not authorized to make that decision, and that's why I didn't challenge the decision from the ZBA in court in July. He wasn't authorized, he wasn't administratively authorized to make that decision.
John, can we confirm that is in fact?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of legal advice that I'm gonna provide to the board, but I'll suffice it to say that Mr. Green's been really great about doing his presentation in a professional way, that he and I have not seen eye to eye on everything. And I'll provide that legal advice with my client, as we normally do, which is attorney-client privileged session. That'll happen. But at this point, I think the best thing is to let him just say what he wants to say. Let him back up his entire application as much as he wants to, set that public hearing, and then we can proceed from there.
I'm gonna back up 1 second. I'm assuming we got a student here today. And so one of the roles is the ZBA is to interpret the laws. If a resident challenges the codes or laws, they have a right to ask for interpretation. And this gentleman's, challenging or questioning some of the codes of the town, and he's presenting his case, and we're hearing it. And normally, you have to have a public hearing, and you have to send a notice out ahead of time. He hasn't done that, so probably in a month we might have a public hearing, but we're just getting the information right now. Okay, continue.
No, that's it. So that determination, obviously, you can't spot zone for a positive effect. You can't spot zone to be punitive. I'd have you, if that were to stand, number one, it's administratively correct, but I'd have the only lot in the town of Sullivan with LR 40 north. I'd be the only person under that requirement. And there's public water and sewer there on my lot, so there'd be no reason to have a lot that big anyways. It was just a wrong interpretation. I get it. I think we've all learned a lot, myself included, in this process. And based on conversations I've had with Mr. Lane. I believe that would take care of the first lot, as far as making it buildable. The building permit that was issued by Mr. Ball that I returned, I asked this board to issue an order for the refund of that permit so that I can reapply and pull another permit once I have the special use permit. It's an invalid permit, I can't use it. I'm not upset at Mr. Ball for issuing it. It just should be reversed, it should be refunded. I'll reapply when I have a special use permit and it's legitimate. As far as my 2 lots by the lake go, again, the second lot's going to be under a special permit. I think Mr. Ball's complaint in the beginning was it lacks road frontage. However, in my extensive research, I've looked through not only the town of Sullivan codes, but when I'm onto something, I'll look through multiple other towns as well and see how they have it written and see how it's presented. In looking at road frontage, I've asked Mr. Ball several times, and again, we're going to go back to this zoning chart. I've asked Mr. Ball several times to show me a code or law supporting his requirement for road frontage. And at that same meeting in November, I asked him, and he keeps pointing to this column that says lot width. And that's all he tells me, is lot width. It's lot width. Well, I could tell you that nowhere on this chart do the words road frontage appear. This chart was modified 7 times by the town since its creation in 1979, which means it went through a process with the town board, the town attorney at the time, I'm sure a public hearing when the local law got changed, and at no point did they put road frontage on this chart. And there's nothing in chapter 275 at all about road frontage. But when you read lot width, when you read the definitions, and it's interesting in the way these chapters are written, when you go through the definitions, a lot of the zoning laws become clear. Little tidbits are written just in the definition section only. Like for buildings, building front could be any building front towards water or a public roadway, and it's determined by the applicant. That's written nowhere in the codes but in the definition. And that's a pretty huge point. So the same thing with lot width. Lot width says the distance between side lot lines measured parallel to the front lot line equal to the setback. There's more verbiage here, but it's equal to the front yard setback. If it's 50 feet, you come back 50 feet, you measure side to side, that's your lot width. But they use the term front lot line. So I always research things a lot further. So I go up to lot line front. What's a front lot line? The line adjoining and separating the lot from any road or highway right-of-way line or the shoreline. Or the shoreline. So the shoreline can be a front lot line. What supports this? Well, another zoning addendum. Zoning attachment 3, provisions, other provisions in zoning. In the beginning of chapter 275, the word shall is defined. The word shall means mandatory. In this attachment, under waterfront lots, it says for lots adjacent to, fronting on Oneida Lake, the portion of the lot yard facing the lake shall be considered the front yard. Lots that front on Oneida Lake, that's the front lot line. That's the front yard. So you come back off of that and measure from side to side to make sure your lot is still big enough. Now, in researching chapter 275, what further buttresses my argument that there's no road frontage requirements at all. Other towns have specific road frontage requirements. They say in this district it's this much, in this district it's this much. The town of Sullivan has some special overlay districts. One of them is your Oneida Lake Recreational Overlay District. It's chapter 275 zoning, 275-34. In this chapter, when they created this chapter, under 275-37, they put road frontage requirements. Very specifically. This is the town of Sullivan code. So they have it for that overlay district, but they don't have it in that zoning table. And when I go through it as a builder, I own a construction company and I've owned and done work on septic tanks, wells, places in the country. Lot width and road frontage are two different things, and they're for two different purposes. Lot width is the health. The zoning and planning is for health, safety, general welfare. Health is clean water and removal of waste. In the MR12 district, the lowest lot size is 12,000 if you have off-site sewer and water. If you have a well or a septic on your property, it has to go up to 20,000 square feet. Why? Because you need space for the leach or for the well to be clean. And if you have both on your property, it goes up to 40,000 square feet and 150 feet wide. Again, why you need to separate the well and septic, and also from the property line to not burden your neighbor from having them place their well so far. So lot width is for health. Road frontage is strictly for safety, for the ingress and egress of you, for fire vehicles, emergency 911, fire trucks, ambulances, and things like that. Since there's no road frontage requirements in the town of Sullivan code, and I've been through this thoroughly, every page, front and back. In chapter 62 of the New York State Town Law, there's a Town Law 280A, which Mr. Ball and I expressed quite at length, and it's going to refer to the streets and tie into the streets again as far as their official status. The last page of 280A in section 5 says, for the purposes of this section, the word access shall mean that the plot on which the structure is proposed to be erected directly abuts on a street that has sufficient frontage thereon to allow the ingress and egress of fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, and other emergency vehicles. And a frontage of 15 feet shall be presumptively sufficient for that purpose. And that makes perfect sense. If you think about it, Route 31, State Highway, is only 24 feet from white line to white line. the pavement. If my land, if Route 31's dead-ended into my land, according to Mr. Ball's interpretations and everything, he would only credit me with 24 feet of road frontage and make me seek a variance against the 75 feet that he's been requiring. And there's been no common sense approach to it. Well, gee, it's a highway that's going in. Sure, it can carry a fire truck in there for its intended purpose, and it's just as safe as if you had 150 feet frontage. Having more road frontage doesn't make your lot any safer. It's getting in on and off of it. And so my stance is, at this time, the town of Sullivan has no road frontage requirements in its codes. And it's clear because in other towns, it's written road frontage requirement, just like it is in the Oneida Overlay District. And again, this was modified 7 times. Went through the whole town procedure, including town board, public hearings, town attorney review. They've never added it. So my stance is there's no road frontage requirements in the town of Sullivan. And so therefore, we have to go with the most restrictive form of legislation or code between the town codes and 216, and this is the only thing that's governing right now.
Okay, so like this application that you were gonna submit, but you're gonna submit this exact same one or modify it a little bit?
I could modify it any way that you need me to clarify.
I think this is clear enough.
So
Look at it and you,
No, I think I've seen that one before.
right.
Those are the 2 we just looked at.
Yeah.
So my stance is, according to my survey that was approved in 2014 and filed, and Mr. Ball brought up some good points in the past on the difference between improved and unimproved sections of my streets. Per this survey and per aerial photographs and everything, School Street, again being 20 feet wide, is improved all the way down and into my lot. And I can give this up to you for you guys to see after I point it out. It's improved all the way past my neighbors into my lot, and I have 20 feet of frontage here, and approximately 20 there. It's a 20-foot road that carries traffic into my land for this 3rd lot. This 2nd lot, so my subdivision, this is lot 1, this is lot 2, this is lot 3. For this lot, from this point here of my neighbors to the end of this neighbor's lot right here is 37 feet. That's an improved section of Water Street. Water Street is improved all the way to this section right here. So this lot, without any improvement of Water Street through here, enjoys 37 feet of road frontage on an approved road. These roads have already been defaulted by the town of Mr. Ball, knowingly or not, and Mr. Bill Bindle, of being a fire access road capable of carrying a fire truck to here and also to here. So per an email Mr. Ball sent me when I first started looking at subdivisions, per the town fire code, because Mr. Ball originally told me I had to build a driveway through my whole land. Told me I had no right to drive at any street, was gonna fine me if I drove on the streets, and there's been a lot of progress since we first started this, and it's been frustrating at times. But in that email he sent me on the driveways, I only need to build a driveway if my front door is 300 feet away from a fire access road. This lot's only 200 feet wide. I've improved Water Street from School Street to where they left off here over the summer. Now, again, it hasn't been through any official process. I don't know what would there to be. As it stands right now, according to town code, I asked that the board find that there's no road frontage requirements, that 15 feet is the minimum required right now, and therefore I would not need a road frontage variance for either one of these lots. Now, I think Mr. Ball has gone back and forth on the validity of the roads too, on whether I can use them. And my stance, and of course it's been substantiated quite a bit, is yes, absolutely I can. Per the same law, 280A, roads have to have a certain status before you issue a building permit. And that status is the road has to be on the official town map. The town of Sullivan doesn't have an official town map. If there is no official town map, there's 3 criteria. That it fronts on an existing town or county or public highway, that the road appears on a recently filed subdivision map with the town, or it appears on a map filed with the county clerk prior to the formation of the planning board, which I have twice. So these streets on this map, Bay Avenue, which has never been developed, Water Street, which is completely developed, and Sand, which won't be developed, Willow and School, are all legal streets for me to build on. Mr. Ball has the authority to issue building permits on those streets. These are filed map streets. Now, before, as the law progresses and you read through the law, section 1 defines status, approved status, and I meet the approved status for streets. Section 2 goes into what's needed for the permit to be issued. And it says the street or highway shall be improved to the standards of the planning board or a bond. The planning board, per Mr. Ball's discussion with me, through the months and per their action, I'm not looking at any plats, they're not interested in giving me standards for these roads. I mean, they have standards in their 235 of 28 feet wide and paved. And if that's what I have to do for 75 feet is put a 28-foot paved road in where it makes no sense and ties in dirt roads to equal that, to satisfy the frontage, I'll do it. But it makes no sense, no common sense. So the other option is I can appeal Mr. Ball's decision for an area variance, a 288 variance, to improve this street to standards that would carry a fire truck, which was part of the application. Those were some of the variances we were looking at, which we didn't get to in July because the size variance, which I think was wrongly applied, because that wasn't met. We never really look at the 288 variances in the rest of the subdivision. So I don't even know what I'd be varying against. I guess it would be, in my mind, I don't need any variances. I have road frontage enough on improved streets. If for some reason the zoning board feels there is compelling evidence in the code for 75 feet of road frontage, then I ask for a 288 variance to use Water Street as a improved emergency vehicle access. And I've done that. I put in, I dug it out, I excavated it, I put in 16 inches of aggregate and road grind with a DOT fabric bed. It's superior to what's adjacent to it. But in my mind, I don't need any variances for any of these lots. For road frontage, for 288, these roads are already improved enough to carry fire trucks, or else this house wouldn't be allowed to be here. Or else these other houses wouldn't be allowed to be up in here unless this road could carry a fire truck today.
Okay.
So what I ask from the board is enough to get my permits. I understand I still have an animal to tackle with Mr. Laney in the town on the subdivision, but I'm interested in the zoning aspect of this right now. I just want to tackle the zoning aspect of the zoning board, not this subdivision.
Okay, so you should get an application in timely, so we, get it out to the public so we can have a public hearing next month. Just out of curiosity, we're gonna have a full board, not everybody's gonna be going away, everybody's planning on.
I'll be here in February.
I just wanted to. Okay.
Well, yeah,
I know.
he's dead.
Yeah, and again, on your application, just really make it clear what you need this board to interpret. I mean, you threw out a lot of information tonight, and so just make it clear what you want this board to decide, okay? All right, so fill out, whether you use the same application that you filled out back in November, if you want to write a new one, it's up to you, and we'll schedule a public hearing for next month.
You've read the code. When you write your application for interpretation, make sure that you keep in mind the powers that we do have and the powers that we don't have. We have the power to interpret the code and to issue variances.
And
We don't have the authority necessarily to compel action. We have the authority to interpret So write your application accordingly, ask us to interpret the code.
On that very same point, the town laws cover zoning board of appeals as well. So I wanna clarify that, because you brought up some points that I don't necessarily agree with right now, so I wanna clarify that now if we can while we're all here. Per 267B and A, these are the Board of Appeals procedures, and it's limited to deciding appeals from and reviewing any order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or determination made by the administrative official charged with enforcement of any ordinance or local law. And then it says what you can do in 267B, you may reverse or affirm, wholly or partly, or may modify the order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or determination appealed from, and shall make such order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or determination as in the opinion ought to have been made in the matter by the administrative officer, official charged with the enforcement of such ordinance. So you do have the power to make orders and compel.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. In fact, I don't think I do with what he's talking about. You're talking about compelling somebody. That's injunctive relief that's possessed by a court. It's not possessed by the zoning board of appeals.
You can't make Mr. Ball give the permits to the
That's
planning
right.
board, but I can get the permits and submit them, and also submit them to the town clerk and have them be part of the public record. I understand you can't compel him
I
to
agree with
force.
you, Mike. I didn't want to jump into all this tonight because we'll be here all night, but I agree that there's certain powers that we don't have. And nor does the planning board. Some of those are.
Do they not have these powers according to the state law?
We have the powers of 267A and B, as you know. But the way you're interpreting them is more in the line of literally forcing him to do certain things, and that's
No.
just not the case.
No.
You're saying compel.
That was the
Well,
language that you used earlier, and that's why.
Forgive me,
that's
there's so
why-
many moving
But that's
parts
why what
here,
I'm
and I'm not
saying
an
is,
attorney.
what I'm saying is,
I get it.
for us to be able to consider what you're asking for, be careful how you craft your application.
Point taken.
You can't ask us to give orders.
But you can determine 275.9, the special permit procedure is this.
We can interpret the code, and we can agree or disagree with Larry's interpretation of the code.
And my issue on that special permit is, he's not authorized to make any interpretation.
They heard that.
Yeah.
You express yourself.
I
very
withdraw,
well.
forgive me for using the word compel him to give, I understand that and I concede that.
Right.
I understand you can't make him, but at that point, if we decide that's the process, I'll hand deliver the application.
But I think Mr. Brains explained his case in a very nice fashion, and the board was listening very carefully, and obviously there's a lot of moving parts here, and we're gonna sort through all that, help you get to the public hearing process, conduct that, conclude that, move on from there.
Now, Mr. Laney, when or if, I mean, obviously, I'm interested in having a conversation with the powers that be that are making this decision behind the curtain, whether it be Mr. Becker and the
There
town
won't be any of
board,
that.
or whether it be Mr. Park and the planning board. I haven't been allowed to have any conversation with the town.
Well, I
At
will
all.
tell you that you threatened to sue the town on numerous occasions, and I was told members of different boards, I would say I wouldn't take these calls. He's indicated he's been recording you over the phone without, I know you don't need to ask that permission individually, but it was a shock to me that that was happening. So good advice from any council would be, when a party threatens to sue you and they mention that they've been recording you or taping you, my advice 100 times out of 100 is don't take calls, don't speak to somebody that's threatening to sue you, because what could happen is you could hear something from them on the phone and then you could misinterpret it and get it wrong and say it as though it actually happened, and that really muddies the water. So that's why I've been talking to you mostly, and I would prefer that you not, well, you can do whatever, you can call whoever you want, they just don't have to take the call.
Well, but I go for weeks at a time without being able to talk to you. As I said, when I came into this town, Mr. Ball was threatening me to drive on my own streets. He was slandering my title. And you bet.
I don't think we need to get into all these personal.
I need to publicly address, and I will stop after this.
Mr. Green, I disagree.
Listen-
Sir, you did
listen.
great tonight, so let's
listen.
keep it on the
There's
high
a
road
reason
right
why
now.
I threatened to sue the town, is because my rights were being violated, John.
And you have the right to do that.
My
Mr.
rights
Green.
were being violated when I first came to this town, and it was clear what he was doing.
We don't agree with that, but you have the right, and you can place that in writing. You feel like this
Well-
is not the venue for that.
So when I first come to the town,
Mr. Green,
and my rights are being violated, and of course I threatened to sue, and then we start having a dialogue, and the town's acting like I'm still trying to sue him 6 months later, you know, that's not fair, it's not genuine.
I hear your comments, and I'm not gonna cast any aspersions against you, but my advice would be, set your public hearing.
Yeah, we want to end on a good note here tonight, so yeah.
So when can I expect to
We're
hear,
doing so good.
when can I expect to hear from you or the town on the subdivision issue?
I'm gonna take all under advisement, I'm gonna give them some advice.
No, not this, I mean the subdivision issue
I don't know.
that I sent you the email on about 276.
I don't have an answer for you right now.
Okay, that's fair enough.
All right, thank you.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the November meeting as submitted. Can't, Cliff already did. Boom, shut down.
Did you set the public hearing already? By motion, did you set a public hearing for?
Well,
I made the motion, Cliff second.
So we are on for a public hearing next month?
No, we haven't done that yet.
Well, you gotta fill out an application and then Jerry will set it, but everybody's gonna be here, so I don't see a reason not to have it, so.
Right.
You know, as long as he gets the application in time so Jerry can get it out to the public,
Correct.
so they can hear it, you know, it's tentatively set, but some things have to happen, okay?
Absolutely.
Excuse me, I have one question on that note. Does this have to go to county, John?
Yeah, I think this is gonna end up going to county, yeah.
So I need to
It's
get,
fallen in a real grade, there's a lot of moving parts there, and it does front on Route 31.
okay, so after I get Steven's application, I need to send it to county, so I'm not gonna have enough time for February's meeting. I need 30 days for county.
And we're already.
What's today?
Yes.
Wait, what's
What's
the date today?
Can you use the previous application sent to the county from July?
No, you're asking for a whole bunch of different things.
This, you can,
This is
Well,
this
I'm
is
not
like the
attorney,
inner
John.
workings of a clock right now, all this cogs.
What, I don't understand,
So-
because we always,
Let's
Okay,
see.
so if I get an application tomorrow,
The
then.
10th.
The 10th.
Yep.
I need 30 days
No, it's the
in order
meeting's
to
on
get it to
the
county,
meeting's on the 9th,
and the meeting's on the
and it's a
9th.
short month. No, it's not a short month.
February is a short month.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Yeah, no.
What application are we talking about? An application for an interpretation?
I don't.
Yeah, so
That's what I'm
the
asking.
county
Interpretations
planning,
for the county?
because of the location, is a county planning, and by the way, you have the right to ask the county's opinion anyway, but
Here's my two
it could be,
questions.
yeah,
If he's submitting an application for a variance,
Yeah.
it's gotta go to county.
yes.
Do applications for interpretation have to go to county?
I believe the answer is yes, I'll look at it, however, you have, if you want the county's opinion, you may ask for it. If people misunderstand, you can always send it to the county. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't here,
So
but
we
I don't
can
want
ask,
you to misunderstand that you can't.
so similar to the way that applications get picked to the planning board for their opinion, you can do the same on an interpretation to the county planning.
Oh, yeah, that happens all the time, but I mean, you guys. pretty
and the
much-
variance wouldn't be needed pending, the variance is dependent on the interpretation.
but obviously, this one, it's not sent to any neighbors, really.
Unless I go for a variance, unless it's. I need a
Well, for the
variance.
interpretation, it wouldn't be sent to neighbors.
Don't ask me. I have no idea.
If it's a public hearing?
Yeah,
Public hearings are usually noticed to the surrounding properties. What was the last one that we had was definitely noticed when it was Quarry Road. That was the last time we had an interpretation formally submitted. You guys remember that, right? Finally?
I mean, was you around then or not?
Cliff was on
Oh,
that.
Okay, he was, right.
Good times.
I was thinking this, so this is only our second.
Usually when you get
So
an
this information will have to be
interpretation,
presented.
one
again.
party or the other will end up
You should, I recommend you do it.
filing an Article 78 taking it forward anyways. So it doesn't matter what you, it doesn't matter what you
Decide,
decide.
the public should hear.
One of the sides.
All right, I'm looking, but I'm not gonna be official on this, I'm looking at this right now, Mike, and again, I think it stands that you may, but I don't see a requirement, but I'm not sure I'm looking at the right version of 239.
it would probably be prudent
I've done it before.
to get,
Yeah.
to get as much,
I've always
guidance as
done it.
possible.
So that's Keegan back there, right? No? What's it? Okay, yes. So you're taking, what's it, Pig, Mike? What course you gonna take, where you have to come?
Participation in government. Who's your teacher? How's it going?
I'll double check this, Steve, but what I'm seeing right now isn't telling me it's going to help. It sounds like maybe you want to do it, but that's up to you guys.
So within a town, they have a whole bunch of codes and rules, and if a person wants a little relief from those codes, they come before this board. For example, depending on what zone, you might need 150 feet of, I shouldn't use this one, road frontage to build a house on. But if you have 148 feet, you can come here and say, hey, and plead your case saying that, you know, all the houses in the area, they all have 100 feet. Can you give us 2 feet of relief? Or like if you wanted to put a shed in your backyard and it's got to go right closer to the back line than what the code requires, you can come here and ask this board for relief. Tonight's case, and I mean, I've been on this board a long time, and this is like only the second time that we've ever done an interpretation of the codes. Like this gentleman, Larry's our code officer, and he put an application. He disagrees with what Larry's interpretation of the code is. So we have to decide what the intent of the code is.
Tim, where do you live?
Cameron.
What's that?
Cameron.
Cameron?
Yes.
I swear I was trying to read your lips and I thought he said Tim. Cameron, where do you live?
Deep Springs Drive.
What's that?
Deep Springs Drive.
Deep Springs. So, do you have friends who live in like Hearthstone, or friends who live over in the Wheatfield neighborhood, at the edge of the town?
Tuscarora Heights, across from.
Okay. So, do you notice a difference about the types of the sizes of the lots and the space between houses where you live on Deep Springs versus where you lived in Hearthstone?
Yes.
Or Tuscarora Heights? Pretty big difference in how they're set up, right? So some of that is dependent on the developer, the people who filed the subdivision maps and want to make the development up there in Deep Springs, versus the people who did Tuscarora Heights. But part of it is how the village, the rules that the village has for the lot sizes, the rules that the village has for how far back the houses have to be set from the road. Some people want to have their house as far back from the road as they can. A lot of people, for cost reasons, don't. It's cheaper to build a 20-foot driveway than a 200-foot driveway. So a lot of times people want to get as close as they can. So those laws are made by the town board, and then they're enforced by the code enforcement officer. And what Steve is describing, if the codes prevent somebody from doing what they want to with their own land, they can ask for permission to do it anyway. And that's what we do. But it's all local government for at least the next 2 years until the state completely takes away home rule.
That's good.
You like
A little
that?
sarcastic, so carefully.
Just a little dig at the end.
Just reality.
While this is fresh in our minds, I think it would be wise to go into executive session, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes, to get advice of counsel, so that we are not
We can
stewing
sign
on
that.
ideas.
You need something signed, do you?
Jerry, would you mind signing? Can we put your name on it?
Mike likes signing.
No,
things.
we're good.
Oh.
Ooh, wow. Your status has been elevated.
Make sure you tell Mr. Dank that the zoning board says hello.
He's been on sick quite a bit lately, so he hasn't seen him much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, yep,
Good night.
thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming in.
Close the door on your way out, please.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Are we adjourning?
No, we're going into executive session. It's not an adjournment.
So, yes.
We have to come out to close the meeting.
And you'll have to, either we have to leave to give us, privacy with the attorney-client privilege, or we gotta shut everything, the system off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can shut it
Oh, yeah,
We're
turn
not
off the
required to have it
systems.
in the first